Joining me now on DIRTRACKR Conversations, Sprint Car Crew Chief Drew Warner. And I guess, Drew, we'll start with most recent events. You just came back from Wild West Shootout after a couple of days there out in Arizona, but you work for DJ Netto. You guys were fast out there. Kind of give me a rundown on how those couple of days went for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I was real happy with it. We started out really strong. The first 2 days we qualified good, which is, with sprint car racing, that's everything now. So I was real happy with our qualifying efforts. Missed it a little bit the first night. Second night we had a pretty good run going, and a nozzle line got knocked off by a rock, so kind of misfortune there. And the third night also same thing. We didn't qualify as good, but played the format pretty well, and front row of a heat, did our job there. Had a pretty good feature going. Kind of the late restart, had a bit of a stumble, and it's kind of is what it is. But still, I mean, yeah, going against those guys, there wasn't a whole lot of cars there, but the quality of cars was pretty good. So I was real pleased with the weekend as a whole.
I watched the all access video with Dominic Scelzi on Flow Racing here last night, and kind of watching them, it seemed like maybe that the surface kind of was like giving you guys some kind of fits through the week, and kind of not sure where to go with it. Was it difficult conditions out there with the way the surface was each night?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it's just I was there in November. We ran a 360 show there, and it was kind of the thing where it was that for whatever reason that dirt's pretty abrasive on tires and stuff, but it got super slick, and every time they worked it, they would work it to it looks like an extreme where it was real wet, and it'd take 5-10 laps and it'd blow right back to slick. So that's kind of what I was expecting. I mean, I kind of thought we had an advantage, like talking to my dad and stuff. I mean, they all were kind of freaking out about how wet it was. And I was like, it's going to go away. I've seen this. And yeah, I mean, every night was kind of different. They worked it the first night and thought it was going to go away, and it stayed real wet and kind of right on bottom. Second night reworked it, and it was, real rough. And so it's definitely was a lot of curveballs, but I guess we need that every now and then.
With it kind of being like an unsanctioned event, it's not count for points anywhere. Like, is that an opportunity for you guys to kind of try stuff, with, it being early in the year before you kind of settle into what your normal schedule is? I kind of feel like, you kind of look around at some of these other events, and even the Wild West Shootout for the late models, that maybe this is an opportunity to do that. But did you guys use it that way?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, we don't run much points except for the King of the West stuff. And, even in the past, like when I was at Rico, we never ran points or nothing. So I've never really been a big like points guy. I mean, I kind of race every race as, like you always got to win. I mean, there's always, you'll get those guys to say, oh, we're just trying something, or just trying something. But I mean, at the end of the day, if they run 15th and their owner sees they run 15th, they don't really care that they were trying something. They just want to know why they ran 15th. So I mean, you might get guys who are, trying stuff a little bit different on the outlaw tours because, it really doesn't mean anything to them. But I mean, for the most part, every time you unload, like you're doing everything you can to win. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
You mentioned your dad in there, and it's definitely something I want to talk about. Having somebody like Ricky Warner as your father, was this kind of just like the easy destination for you, or like maybe not easy, but like this was kind of made the most sense for you? It's like, he is arguably one of the greatest sprint car crew chiefs to ever live, and it was like this is just going to be the path you wanted to go on to.
I mean, yes and no. When I was a kid, I was younger, obviously, I mean, racing, it's all I've ever known from my mom's side too. My grandparents stuff, they owned a racetrack. So I was always surrounded by racing. I mean, I knew I would do something with racing for sure. I mean, I would say probably when I was younger, I really wouldn't think I'd take this route just because of seeing my dad gone all the time. I didn't have a normal life because of that, because he was always on the road and stuff. So, like right after high school, I mean, I kind of, I didn't do the college route, but I kind of like, didn't think I was going to go full bore into racing like this. I was kind of in Kansas for a little bit, doing some stuff with my mom's side of the family, and, doing a little bit of racing with them, but kind of had a normal day job type deal, just racing on the weekends. And then, once I kind of did that and stepped all the way back from it, from sprint cars like that for, a couple months, I was kind of like, it was eye opening, like, oh, wow, I do need to be a part of it. So then, once I did make the switch and did, start racing full time stuff, it was kind of, then it was a no brainer. And then, now that I'm at this point, I couldn't imagine doing anything else besides this. It's kind of, it's all I know, it's all I love. So, I mean, it's, having my dad, he definitely, helped guide me once I did that. He never really forced anything on me. I mean, actually, if you asked him, he probably told me not to do this. So, but it definitely it helps having a guy like that in your corner. Now that you're in the sport, and he definitely guides me, and because of him, I was able to meet some really good people in the sport and kind of link myself up with the right groups. So yeah, it's kind of destiny, I guess.
What were your kind of early opportunities to work on sprint cars? What were some of those first deals you were on?
So 2015, I think is what it was. That's when I kind of decided, well, I back up, I guess. Back in high school and stuff, I after school I worked for Beast, for Bob East and stuff, on some of his midgets and kind of non-wing stuff a little bit. And then 2015 was when I kind of decided, like, I wanted to go on the road and I wanted to like start doing this, like, for sure full time. And so I went to Florida at the start of the year with my dad. And I mean, basically, he just told me just to come. Like, there was I didn't have anything lined up. He's like, once you get out here, it won't take long. Someone will want to do something. And I mean, I got to Florida and I don't even think we got to the first race. And I had already got linked up with Roth Motorsports when Gravel was driving their car. So I started with them then 15. Like I said, that was kind of my first, like, on the road. That's all I did. Kind of a low end guy with them and with Gravel, and that was kind of their year where it was a little bit rocky. They had Gravel for the start, and then we ended up they parted ways. Had a couple other guys come in, and then basically around June-ish, the whole team kind of, I mean, from crew chief driving, everyone kind of split. So I was pretty lucky that Todd kind of took a chance on me, and he moved me out to California, and we ran the end of 15 with Kyle Hurst all about the California swing, and that was kind of my big, like, my main thing, because I got to the point where I mean, I learned to basically do everything. They only had one full time crew guy, so I was able to do everything on the car, and I liked that a lot because it was more of a hands on learning, and not just going on the tractor and stuff. I mean, I had to do everything at the shop, all the shop work, everything. So that was my first big gig there, and then I did that for all of 15. 16 was kind of a year where Roth didn't really know what their plans were. They didn't think they were going to have a California team. They were going to go back on the road full time. I think that was when they had Joey, and I just got to the point where I learned so much so quickly that summer, and the end of 15 doing that, because I do it all myself, that I didn't really want to go back on the road yet, because I kind of wanted to just kind of do a smaller scale deal and just keep learning. Basically, when you're on the road like that, it's racing all those races. It's hard to learn anything new because you're getting so repetition of doing your job. It's hard to kind of widen your range. So 16 was the year I got linked up with another team in California, Stan Greenberg. Mitchell Sino drives it, which my wife, that's, like I said, my brother-in-law now. So I got linked up with them, and kind of the same deal where he never really had anyone he paid to do the stuff full time like that. So I was able to kind of work with him, and I did 16 and 17 with them. And then even started out 18 doing the same thing. And just because I was by 18, I was ready to go out on the road. Like, I was kind of ready to do it, just never really had the right opportunity, nothing really lined up. And then so I stayed with them at the start of 18, and then that was when I think it was maybe April or so. I did we won a couple races with Mitchell, and then I got the call from Dave Abreu, and went with Rico and took over his deal for all of 18 and stuff. And that was obviously, that was my main, like, that was the biggest eye-opening, traveling, like, weight of the world on your shoulders, responsible for everything type deal. So yeah, that was 18, and then 19 did that for up till I think like September or so, and then we parted ways. Stuff kind of just didn't work out, and then that led me to I got really fortunate. Totally, the week after that's when Netto's called, and here I am so far.
When you are, kind of get those first opportunities, I feel like we've talked to guys on both ends of the spectrum, where it's like some guys come in and like they don't like know anything about a sprint car and they have to learn. And I'm assuming you probably had a fairly massive head start, but like, how much learning did you have to do in those early days? Did you have a pretty good idea what you were supposed to be doing, or was there a pretty big learning curve for you?
Yeah, I mean, I had a good idea, like when I was with like the Roth and stuff like that, like, when I was more the low end guy and like just taking care of the car and stuff. That was, I mean, I pretty much knew all that, and it wasn't too much of a learning curve for me. Like, I kind of knew all that stuff. It was more when, once you get involved in the actual like setting up and stuff like that, that's when it's kind of, you gotta be a lot more detailed. And then there's just, so many, different things to do to get the same part, every driver is different, all that whole deal. So that, that was a big learning curve. And I mean, then once I got to Rico's deal, even that, like going back to my dad, for instance, I couldn't really use a whole lot of information from him because, when he was with Don, I mean, Don Schatz and Rico Abreu aren't quite the same drivers. So
Yeah.
there's just so much different stuff there. And, but, like the biggest learning curve that I had is, stuff that you don't really think about, from the outside until you get involved. It's just like the day-to-day stuff of running a team, I mean, ordering parts for the trailer, making sure that, you got your hotels booked and, the truck routes, stuff like that, all behind the scenes. That's not really necessarily at the races, just the stuff that it's the preparation of getting there. That was the stuff that, I just never really paid attention to when I was younger, when I was around my dad and stuff. I just, it all just seemed like it always just happened. I never really thought about doing it all. So when I got to Rico's in 18 and fully, the whole, like I said, the way of the world, like everything was on me and I had to get everything kind of lined up. That was when it was the most eye opening of like, holy crap, I gotta really buckle down here. Like this isn't just for fun anymore. There's a lot going on. So that was for sure. That was probably the biggest learning curve I had.
One of the things I'm always curious about with crew chiefs is like your notes. You hear all the time about, I need a notebook, or, we're building a notebook, whatever. What does that notebook actually look like? And, for somebody like you, you're a younger crew chief, like have your notes, like, I mean, are you evolving with your notes? Like, if you look back at your notes from 2, 3 years ago, like, do they look different than your notes now, or is it pretty much the same?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Like I don't have I'll have to show you a setup sheet. I mean, I have a setup sheet we keep throughout the night, and I mean, it's extremely detailed. I mean, down from hot laps, qualifying, heat race, dash, everything. I mean, it's all I write everything going on throughout the night. I mean, I keep a list of, times, what our times were, what the quick time was, how much track change, what gear you ran. I'm just everything. The notes it is pretty crazy. um, I kind of do laugh sometimes though. Like you get somewhere and like, like you'll go like, for instance, well, I got an example like with Rico, went to Pevely with him, and that was we won my first outlaw race with him, and so you go there the next year, and it's like, hey, I got the setup sheet. We won with this. This is what it was. You do the exact same thing, and I think we ran like 12th that night, and so it's kind of like I always joke like, I need a setup sheet. You just need to know what gear to run because everything freaking changes every race anytime. But I mean, no, definitely. I mean, yeah, I keep a lot of notes on everything. Nope, my handwriting is absolutely horrific. I mean, it is terrible. So like, I never have to worry about anyone stealing any notes, nothing like that. Because if they can read it, they can have it. I mean, it's definitely extremely bad.
What is that like? I mean, I'm assuming all of these things are kept in a binder or something. Like, I mean, do you have like tabs for each track, or like, how do
Yeah,
you keep all of it organized?
yeah, that's exactly what I do. I mean, I have just a big binder, and I do it. I usually do it by year. I mean, so I have a binder for every year, and yeah, I mean, I go through the steps at the start of the year, map out every track we're gonna go to, and then I go through and make one of those little tablets saying what track it is, and I go to Office Depot and I get the expensive whatever the paper is that you put your resume on, the little thicker paper, the
Mm-hmm.
cardstock thing's what it's called.
Yeah.
I get the nice paper, and I mean, yeah, that's the best way to do it. It's just kind of separate by track, and it definitely, when you're racing, 80, 100 races a year like that on the road, your notebook gets pretty full pretty fast. But definitely, I mean, it's huge. There's the whole thing about it. There's just so much stuff that you would forget, and then luckily, I write everything down. So I'm like, oh, I remember this guy ran second, this guy ran third, and oh yeah, this happened. The track did this, and it definitely helps.
One of the other things that always interests me too about, kind of driver, crew chief, team combinations is like all of the, equipment choices you have between chassis and shocks and engines and wings and, all this different stuff. And, we hear all the time about drivers that have like specific, a specific chassis that they favor or whatever. But like when you're a crew chief, when you come into a team, like for example, when you come into work with DJ, like does DJ have a set of stuff he likes to use and you have to mold to him and what they have? Or do you come in and say, okay, well, you guys have been using this, but I think if you switch to these things, you might be better off. Like, how does that kind of relationship happen there?
I mean, it's kind of a little bit of both, I mean, I definitely feel like if you get, an older, more veteran, experienced crew chief, he might be a little bit more set in his ways. He kind of finds his package and he likes, and so I always felt being a little bit, younger, I mean, like I'm 25, so I definitely haven't been doing this as long as most guys. So I never really had anything where I was like, basically earned it where like this is what I'm doing, this is what we run, this is it. So like, when I went to Rico's deal, I mean, I didn't really change anything. I left it exactly how all the stuff was and just basically taught myself to make it work. I definitely did learn some lessons though because of that. I mean, I definitely learned that there are some things that I do like that that I feel is better and I feel like I can make work better. So when I came to Netto's, they had a pretty good package. I mean, I ran we run KPC frames. I ran those before with the 37 car with Greenberg. They have FK shocks. I mean, I'm super tight with Willie Kane, so like that was the no brainer. And it's funny the one thing they didn't have was I'm real close with Linton Jeffrey and Vortex Wings, just
Mm-hmm.
because of dad and everything. I've just
Yep.
known him my whole life. I used to run quarter midgets with no wings, and I had a Vortex wing sponsor. So I've just always been really close with Linton. So I told DJ, I was like, hey, they asked if I want to change anything. I'm like, everything else looks pretty good. They all got, they got top notch equipment, great motors, great frames, great everything. I said, if I had a choice, I do like the Vortex wings because, I'm close with Linton and I know they're a good product. And they're kind of like, okay, yeah, well, we got a lot of wings left. So whenever we're done, then, when we're out of wing inventory, we could talk about it. And my second or third race to them was Trophy Cup of 19. And we had plenty of speed. And I think in 3 nights of racing, I mean, we went through about 5 top wings. I mean,
Oh
we
no.
went nonstop. I mean, it was unbelievable. Like it just had plenty of speed, zero luck. So I remember it was kind of a joke. We were leaving there and, we had a giant mound of our junk wings beside the trailer. And I told Frank, I was like, hey, Frank, I think we're out of wings. We can finally talk to Linton if you'd like. So that was pretty easy to make that switch.
When obviously you've kind of worked with a bunch of different drivers now, and the other thing that I think is so fascinating is the relationship between drivers and crew chiefs. And you've got some guys that will have an opinion about bars and wicker, what exactly set up things they want. And then you hear about guys like Larson, and Larson's just like, here's what I'm feeling, just take that from there and run with it. And as a crew chief, do you have an opinion one way or the other? Would you rather your driver was more technical, or would you rather they just told you what they wanted?
I mean, honestly, it's kind of a little bit of both. I mean, you'll get guys who as long as your driver trusts you. I mean, that's everything. Like if they trust you and they believe in you, then they really usually won't even question anything. They'll just do whatever you want. I mean, like I said, Larson, for example, Larson trusts Silva, and so it doesn't matter what they do. Larson knows it's going to be fast. He'll drive as hard as he can. So as long as you have trust is the main thing. I mean, you definitely want a driver who can, he has to be able to give feedback. I mean, I can see stuff, I can watch the car around there and tell you what I see. But if something's actually wrong, they could be driving different to fix that. So I'm seeing what they're doing to fix it, not what the main problem is. So you got to have a driver who can, tell you what they feel, tell you their feedback, and give a little bit of opinion on that. But then sometimes, like you got like I'm with DJ now. He doesn't really. That's all he does. He'll just tell you what he feels, and he'll just drive the wheels off it. I mean, he doesn't really care about what the shock numbers are, what the bars are, nothing like that. He doesn't question it, doesn't ask. He just drives as hard as he can, and he'll tell me what he feels. So you got to kind of have a mixture of both. I mean, I'm sure if you had a guy, I never really been with many that were like that, but if you had a guy more like a Donnie or someone like that who knows everything, knows what they want, knows what they're searching for, then I mean that might be that you can kind of get a little bit issues there when crew chief and that see different. But for the most part, like I said, as long as your guy trusts you, that's everything, man. That's the main thing for sure.
Do you like? I know you guys kind of watch the track like a hawk, and you obviously watch your driver like a hawk. Do you have like situations where you think one thing, where you're seeing one thing, and you come back after a hot lap session or after a heat race, and the driver says, "Hey, this is what's going on," and it's completely the opposite of what you thought was happening?
Yes, yeah. There's definitely times. Like I said, Arizona's a perfect example. Like it was the track got all ripped up and it was all wet and heavy, and I'm like, oh, it's for sure gonna go slick. And even DJ's out there and he's like, man, it's really wet. I don't know. And I'm like, nah, just relax, it's fine. We've seen this before, and so we went the opposite way, and obviously that was the wrong way. So yeah, there's definitely times, and even I sometimes I get on a quad or moped or something right around the track and kind of see the moisture and the holes and stuff like that and kind of which way it's going. But for the most part, I'm not out there full speed doing it. So they'll definitely, once they get out there, they'll notice and see stuff and kind of, be able to tell more than what I can see, just from being on the quad and stuff. So yeah, there's definitely times where we both see different things, and you got to then if that happens, you got to, like me, I have to decide, man, am I looking at the right thing, or does he see the right thing? And you got to kind of, weigh out what the best option is, and then kind of go from there.
In all of the drivers, I've kind of talked to over the years, and having people on Open Red and having people on this show, the kind of overwhelming sentiment is that like drivers for the most part don't seem to talk about driving things. Like drivers like don't go to talk to other drivers and try to get ideas about what they should be doing better, or kind of trade notes. And I'm curious for you, like, and to kind of pull it apart, right? Like, is it different, like if you're out on tour with the Outlaws versus if you're out on tour, like, or if you're out traveling in California, but like, do you go trade notes with other crew chiefs, other crew guys about stuff that's happening? Or is it like, I don't want to know what they're doing and I don't want them to know what I'm doing, so I'm not going to talk to them? Like, how does that work? And is it different locally in California versus like out on tour with the Outlaws?
I mean, you kind of, it's a little bit of a mixture of both. I mean, I always kind of joke and say, I have no secrets. I'm too young. I ain't won enough races to have secrets. So I'm pretty fortunate, where I know, I've grown up around a lot of the older veteran crew chiefs. So, I feel like I have a good relationship where we kind of trust each other, and I can talk to them, and, I ask them questions, and, I always listen no matter what. I mean, I listen to what everyone's saying, everyone's doing. Um, I mean, if you go out there and you dominate or whatever, you're super fast all weekend, and you might feel like, I don't want anyone to know what we're doing, or I don't want them to catch on. But I've never really been like that. I'm always very open and talk to everyone, because I want them down the road when I'm struggling or when they see something different. I want to be able to learn from them. I definitely know the way the sport works, to where just because you're fat. Like I said, I mean, the Pevely setup. We ran it the first night, we won the Outlaw show, and then we ran 12th the next year. So everything's always changing. So I just like to I'm always super open. I always talk to everyone, listen to everyone, and just kind of see what they're doing. And if they ever ask me questions, I'm, for the most part, I'm super honest. I mean, because I want them to trust me. So yeah, and I feel like maybe crew chiefs talk more to each other than some drivers do, maybe, just because I don't really know what the reasoning is. But yeah, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, we're all pretty open with each other.
When you guys are kind of like, full on in the season and working with DJ now, I would imagine you guys probably aren't racing, 3-4 nights a week like a full-time, Outlaw schedule would be. But what does a standard week look like for you? I'm guessing you guys are racing on the weekends and have time during the week, but like, are you in the shop every day? Like, do you and DJ have like debriefs? Like, what does a full week of racing look like for you guys during the season?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm in the shop every day. I'm actually real lucky that I just bought a house here in Hanford, and I ended up being I'm a mile from our race shop. So I mean, I go to the shop every day. DJ, he's actually a little bit different than most drivers. He's kind of taken a step back from being like a full time racer, and he's taken over the family business with Netto Ag. Which is good. I mean, it's good and bad. It's bad because I want to race all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also good because I sit back and look and realize Netto Ag has produced a lot of money to buy all these nice things. So the more money they make, the more money I spend on racing. So, but I mean, so our shops are side by side. So I mean, I see DJ every day, and we always do lunch, stuff like that every day. Typically, we only really race Fridays, Saturdays. There's a couple shows where some weekdays, some Sundays, stuff like that, or like I said, if we do travel a little bit, we're getting to the point where, depending on what happens with COVID, if we're not able to race full time in California again this year, I can now load up, and we're talking about maybe going back east for a while, and DJ can kind of fly back and forth. Just so that way he's here for work a little bit and still get to race a little more back east. But yeah, I'm fully committed to racing. That's my day job. That's all I do. I kind of do a little side gig now where I'm trying to start doing some FK shocks and stuff. Like I said, I was real close with Willie, so I'm trying to do some a little bit of FK shock work on the side, and just kind of trying to build a little business like that. But between those two things, that's pretty much takes up my whole time for sure.
As a crew chief, and obviously, you need to know everything about the car, but it seems like, we've talked to Willie in the past, kind of about the evolution of things and how important, shocks have become. And, knowing Willie, having that connection and, being able to build shocks and all that stuff. Do you think that gives you an advantage, to be able to understand what's really going on and be able to make those changes? I feel like in the past, if and correct me if I'm completely wrong here, but it seems like that there are teams that almost have like packages, like they've got a certain set of shocks for a certain type of racetrack, and then like they kind of really don't differ from that. And are you able to make shock adjustments on the fly? Is that something you're trying to do or not do? In my world, in the NASCAR world, I mean, we have a shock specialist, and I mean the guy's building shocks, all week long, and every little tiny little detail. And it's like, are you guys doing that same thing on sprint cars?
Yeah, yeah, for the most part. I mean, there's definitely guys, like I said, they get their package together, they get their little rhythm where, the driver feels comfortable and they have success. And, they might run the same set of shocks for, couple weeks or, months, whatever. I definitely, the whole reason that I started doing the FK deal was just to widen my knowledge. I wanted to be able to, say in the future or whatever, I know how the racing world works. Something happens where I'm at and I end up going somewhere else. I wanted to be able to be able to put on my resume, hey, I can build shocks. I can do that stuff, and that's definitely an advantage where when you're on the road, if you bend a shaft, get in a wreck, whatever, instead of shipping it out, you can take care of and build it yourself. So it's definitely an advantage to know that. And then, yeah, I mean, anything that you learn like that, the people put a shock on a dyno and they just see the basic numbers and they think like, that it is what it is and go. And it's cool being with Willie like this and getting as close as I have with him, where he's basically, taught me what every little thing is and why you do this to a shock, this is the result. And, if the track's like this, you might think this is where your shock you want to be, but you actually need to be around here. So it's definitely an advantage like that. And like I said, just being close to a guy like that. I mean, the people you connect yourself with in the sport is huge. And so, I kind of have my group that I try and stay with all the time. And like Willie's just one of those guys that he has a lot of knowledge, and I try and soak up everything from shocks to using more, stuff he did in the past with KKR with just racing as a whole. So the more people that you can, surround yourself with and smart people like that you can trust yourself with, the better off you're going to be.
Sprint cars are obviously fairly simple in terms of how you set them up. You don't really have all of that many choices, but the one thing that I'm always curious about is like the evolution of, how sprint car setups and sprint car builds and all these things. And, we've seen Willie come out with kind of some crazy design sprint car and some of that stuff. But, at least in the years you've been around it, has sprint car technology really changed all that much, or is it still kind of the same basic stuff?
I mean, I feel like it's all pretty much about the same since I've been around. Like I haven't seen any, drastic changes. Kind of the one thing that's different that's, just compared to how sprint car racing was to how it is and where it's going is there's not a whole lot of, I guess, fabricating is the word you want to use. Like I don't have to make anything for a car really. Like everything you have, you go and you buy it. You might tune it, do a couple things a little different, but you pretty much nowadays we buy everything that you need for these cars. So that's kind of the one thing that I have really noticed that's changing and going more in that direction. I mean, like I've heard stories of guys, of like Carl and my dad, like they're rebuilding motors and stuff at the track or in the hotel. And it's just like, that's insane to me. Like every time that the teams I've been with, I've been fortunate enough to where we're well off to, if I have a motor issue, I'll be the first to tell you. I ain't smart enough to dig out and tell you what's going on. So if I have a motor issue, I'm pulling that motor out, I'm shipping to the guy who built it, and I'm putting my next one in. And that's probably not the right way to go about it. It's probably not the right way for our sport to go, but it's just is how it is. That's just, it's when you have so much money being spent on these things. I don't want to be the one to mess it up. So if the owner has multiple and we're ready to get going, he wants the best one at all times. So there's a lot more of just, buy new and put it on, or buy new. You don't fix a lot of things, or you don't have to worry about that. So that's probably the biggest change that I've seen is just, a lot of guys, we're basically, you're becoming more of a parts changer nowadays, because you don't want to, you don't have to sit there and fix or to build or whatever. It's just everything's already done for you.
As a crew chief and as a crew guy, the fact that everybody can basically have the same stuff, does that make your job harder or does it make your job easier?
I mean, I think it's definitely harder. I mean, you used to unload it, and some tracks, if you had a, like if like we run rider engine, so I feel like, man, we got a good rider motor, like we got a, a nice motor here, and you unload now, and you got, if you're racing against, like this past week, we raced against 25 guys, and 24 of the guys all had the same hitter motors. Like everyone now to the point where we all can buy the same thing, so it's easier, I guess you could say, to build them and to get them to the track. But it's definitely harder to where we're all on the same thing. So you are literally looking for every little bit that you can get for an advantage, whether it be, weight now or you don't want to run a wing because it has a little bit of damage. And that's just that little bit that's going to hurt you in qualifying now. It's just, everything's just so close now that it's, like I said, it's easier to get to the track, but it's a lot harder at the track to try to outperform those guys now.
I'm going to kind of get a little shitty a little bit here, but I want to ask you, like, do you have a track or like a track type that just gives you fits as a crew chief?
Um, not necessarily yet. I mean, I don't have anything. I mean, like, you'll get some tracks that are like, like a Chico, for instance. You'll get a Chico where it's just flooded and rough and, stuff like that. Usually, as most crew chiefs, and like me too, like you don't really like it because there's not much tuning involved, I guess you could say. Like you're just trying to get your car as free as you can. Um, so like like back to my dad, like my dad, he hates going to California. He hates it with a passion because of all these tracks. But I'm kind of not the exact same because every driver I've ever had has been a gasser. So like usually, like if the track's rough and heavy like that, like DJ walks out of the trailer smiling ear to ear, like he's gonna go have fun. So um, if you have success and you're good at that track, then it instantly becomes your favorite, and like it is what it is. As soon as you have a bad night, then yeah, that track sucks. That track, the surface is terrible. We should never go there again. But all it takes is one win, and you'll be ready to go back there again.
Kind of shifting gears now to this year, if COVID doesn't affect anything, what is the schedule for you guys going to look like? Are there certain tracks you guys like to race at? Is DJ wanted to get to certain places? There's a certain place he doesn't want to go to. Like, what's that schedule going to look like for you guys through the summer?
So for the most part, we'll for sure do the King of the West deal in California. DJ won that a couple of years ago. He won the championship with that. So we'll be looking to do that again. Any 410 racing at all that's close, we'll for sure do. I mean, 410s are struggling so bad right now in California because of how big the 360 scene has got. So we for sure will support every 410 show we can. 360 stuff, I mean, pretty much we'll kind of, just fill in our schedule with that. We're not going to run full points for any of the series out here, just kind of whatever makes sense. My schedule that I have made right now, I mean, I think it goes through like April or so or May. And there's kind of some gaps and stuff. So if we could, I would like to go back east and try and do like a Ohio Speed Week or some stuff like that. That was always my favorite schedule. Like when I did that with Rico, that was always the perfect deal for me. Where your winters are California. You start out the year in California with the nice weather, and then go back east racing for June, July, stuff like that. Hit some big money shows, see some new tracks. Knoxville, stuff like that. I'd love to do all that stuff again, and then finish the year out in California. So it all just kind of depends. The only thing that I know for sure is, like I said, any Key in the West, any 410 show, we're gonna do anything we can to get there around here. But I mean, that's about the only thing that's set in stone. Otherwise, we didn't sign any contracts for nothing, so we'll pretty much run wherever we can and wherever makes the most sense.
Has DJ done a lot of traveling? I mean, like back east. I mean, has he raced in Ohio and Pennsylvania and some of these places?
He raced a little bit in Ohio. I think in maybe 2016 or something like that. He was with Kadings, and Kadings took care of stuff, and they went back to Knoxville and a little bit stuff like that. And he's never done like a full summer or like a full tour like that. He's only done a couple little trips with, like I said, with them. Last year when we were slow, I know he They flew him out to drive for Lenders in Ohio and stuff for that for a little bit. So he's been back there a little bit, but not a whole lot. Not even enough to say like a full season back east. I'd say just kind of hitting this stuff. So it's something that he definitely wants to do, and I think this is the perfect time for us to do it. It's a little bit harder, like I said, with him taking over the family business. He's just got a lot of responsibilities now with that. It's hard to be gone for that long. But I mean, I think that he can. We kind of seen how Arizona went. We did a little bit of trips last year. We went back there to Oklahoma with the All-Star stuff for that little speed week. We did that. So he's done enough to see how he can do it, how the business is with him away. So I think that if everything goes how I would like, then we could go back there and take him back east for a little bit.
Is that something that, like, obviously with him not having a ton of experience, is that something that like excites you a little bit because you've been to a lot of those places and you have, I'm guessing fairly solid setup notes for some of those places?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely think that the Nettos, they got, like I said, that Frank and James, now they gave us great race cars. Great. I mean, they don't cheap out nothing. They give us the best stuff, and so I definitely think that we have the capability of going back there and running really good. DJ's, I think he's a good enough driver where he adapts really quick. So I think that he'll be able to pick up on a lot of those tracks. And I mean, yeah, like I said, that's part of having the notes and the setup sheets. I have a decent idea to get started at most of those tracks, and I enjoy all those tracks, and like Ohio when it gets super slick, and I enjoy all the Pennsylvania stuff, and so I think that I think we'd have a lot of success. I really, it's something I'd be looking forward to doing.
I want to ask you about your time with Rico, and I know there were some kind of really high highs and some kind of pretty low lows through that time, but to get the opportunity to crew chief a team like that at at such a young age, what do you kind of take away from that? Like, what are things you've learned that like later on in your career, right now working for DJ and whatever else you do in the future, that you kind of take away from your time working with Rico?
I mean, it's just the experience, just those 2 years, we raced. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many races. It was just, you do so much and such a little time frame that the experience is everything in the sport. So that was the main thing. And I mean, yeah, that's one thing I'm pretty fortunate to where me and Rico are still pretty good friends now today. So the friendship and all that stuff like that. And, I'm super grateful for a guy like David Abreu to take that chance on me. I mean, because yeah, he was hiring I think I was 22, 23, whatever I was at the time, hiring basically a kid and just kind of said like, hey, here, let's see what happens. So it's definitely the experience is the main thing. And I had a lot of fun doing it. I wouldn't change anything about it. I learned a lot from, like I said, from booking hotel rooms and, making sure we got enough parts to, I guess what I feel like how the car should be, or what we should be running, like you talked about. So I definitely learned a lot in that sense. So that's probably the main thing, is just the memories and the experience, stuff like that.
I want to get back to this. I probably should have asked you about this before at the beginning when we were talking about recent events, but I definitely want to ask you about Chili Bowl. You guys go to Chili Bowl. You had what, Macedo there at Chili Bowl, and had you worked on midgets a lot? Was that something you've done a lot? I mean, it was pretty fast.
Yeah, no, I had zero midget. I mean, like, so back when I worked for Bob East, but I mean, that was just a complete low end guy. I had no experience at all, and no desire really to do anything with it. And, we went to so we hired Netto's. They owned a midget, and I told them, I was like, hey, I'm not confident enough to tell you that I'm going to unload and give you a great car. So we actually hired. They hired Willie Kane for a couple races to have him take care of their midget at the end of the year last year, and DJ ended up flipping and he hurt himself. He the way he landed kind of awkward. It hurt his rib. He was kind of or hurt his lung. He was coughing up blood and stuff there for a little bit. So he wasn't able to continue racing the rest of those couple weeks that the USAC was out in California. So I'm, one of my best friends is Carson Macedo. So he asked me if I would go help him because he was running the midget and the sprint car. So I went with him to Merced and stuff for those couple nights. And I mean, I got there and like kind of thought I was just going to be hanging out type deal. And I got there and I was the only guy on the midget. I mean, I was it. They had a couple guys on the sprint car, and then they just gave me the reins of the midget. So Sean Dyson over in Australia, he was able to call me a lot back and forth. And You know, the those King chassis and stuff that we have, they're man, that's it definitely spoiled me. I mean, it's hard to mess those things up. They're really fast as is. So with Sean over the phone, and then just kind of me being there helping him read the track, and you know, we kind of put together a nice little weekend there in Merced. And then because of that, that's when Tommy and Carson talked, and that's when they had me go through with Chili Bowl. And so yeah, it was me and Carson and Carson's brother Cole. That was our crew going to Chili Bowl. So it was a lot of fun. We were pretty good right out the gate. Definitely learned a lot. A couple mistakes on our part, and a couple mistakes on Carson's part. So it was a learning experience, but it was a lot of fun. I definitely would do it again.
How different is like that event versus like, I mean, even if you compare like midget events, how different is Chili Bowl versus something like what you did at Merced?
I mean, yeah, you can't even compare it. Just the Chili Bowl. I've been lucky enough to where I've actually gone to a lot because with my mom's side of the family in Kansas, with their racetrack, they always took their souvenir trailer there. So I mean, I've been going there since I was a kid. Every year we go there, and this is my first year of like basically working on a car that like I guess you say had expectations of like they were expecting to do good. So it's definitely, I mean, it was nerve wracking as can be. We ran on Monday, and we practiced Monday, and then Monday night was the race. And I mean, I was just as nervous there as I was, at qualifying at Knoxville during the nationals. I mean, the nerves were definitely there. It's a fun event. It all happened so fast, and definitely a lot more stressful than just going and doing a Merced race like that. That's just you didn't think anything of it. But the Chili Bowls, it's the Chili Bowl for a reason.
What was that like week like? Because I mean, you guys go from Chili Bowl and then basically straight to Arizona. Like how? I mean, like you guys have been driving trucks back and forth and all that. Like how crazy was that week?
It was a wild week. I think we left California. I want to say Thursday, the Thursday before. It was me, Carson, and Cole. So we had three drivers. I mean, the truck never shut off. We drove straight to Tulsa. Got there, Friday night. Saturday moved in. Got all squared away Sunday. Raced on Monday. Took the car, got everything ready on Tuesday, and then obviously there was a couple drinks, in between there that
Just a
we,
few.
yeah, just a few, yeah. And then I was able to get away on Wednesday and Thursday, and I went and seen my grandparents stuff in Kansas, my aunt and uncle and everybody, and so I was able to kind of get away for a little bit, and then yeah, I came back and we raced. We had another driver with us, Tim Essen, who he actually rented DJ's car from him because his uncle helped sponsor DJ on the sprint car stuff. So we took care of that thing on Friday, and then yeah, Saturday we did all the main event stuff. And I mean, Saturday night the checkered flag, and we didn't make the A obviously. When the checkered flag of the A main dropped, our trailer was already loaded and everything, door shut. We went back, we showered, cleaned up, came right back to the expo, hooked right up to our trailer, and we left Saturday night after races and drove all the way back to California
Jeez.
because we had to leave. I mean, I think so. We got here Sunday night, and we had to leave for Arizona Wednesday. So it was all just kind of boom, boom. It was all a hectic week for sure.
So are you gonna like? I mean, is this gonna be a yearly thing now? Like Drew Warner, like midget crew chief at the Chili Bowl?
I don't know about that. I mean, I'll tell you what. If it's a Toyota motor and a King chassis, it definitely makes your life a lot easier. So if that's the case, maybe we'll be doing it. I had a lot of fun. Like I said, Carson's one of my real good friends, so it was cool to get to race with him, and Cole's same way. Kind of a fun little team there, and so it was. I don't know. If you're asking me right now, there's no way I'm doing it again. I don't want to do that. I don't want the stress, but I'm sure when it gets closer, I'm sure you might find me there again.
Well, I'll let you go. I certainly appreciate the time. Where are we gonna see you and DJ next?
I think so. Like I said, the COVID depending, I think we got about 2 weeks off here, and then I mean pretty much full bore in California from there on. We'll hit up the ASCS stuff when they come out here, and then the Outlaws when they come out here. So we'll be all over there for a little bit at the start of March and into February and everything. So we'll see. That's the plan. Hopefully it all works out.
Cool. Well, Drew Warner, thank you for the time today and good luck this season.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. I appreciate it.